David, thanks for joining us. Good morning. How are you?
You got it, man. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Let me start with Alex Smith with what you saw last night. Will we explain that offense from a quarterbacking perspective of what you saw, and is that something that we might be seeing the rest of the season with the Chiefs?
Well, I think that what Andy Reid's done is taken the West Coast offense and kind of put some tweaks to it. They had some gadget plays with Tyreek Hill in the backfield, Demaryius Thomas in the backfield. I mean, not Demaryius Thomas. But, they're running some speed option with Alex Smith, which is kind of crazy. They do some interesting things. I mean, they used Travis Kelce at quarterback with Alex Smith at the tailback position on a 2nd-and-1 play. So, I mean, they got a lot of time on their hands, it seems like. And the one thing that you heard throughout the entire offseason was we need to get more big plays out of Alex. And it wasn't just from the fans and the media, but it was from the coaching staff. And you heard it when they were talking in the preseason games. And Patrick Mahomes comes in, and he's making big plays down the field. And so there's talk of, well, maybe he should be the guy. And for the first half, we're sitting in there, and we're watching the game together, and with all the guys that are doing the show, and we're thinking, man, he doesn't look comfortable. Yeah, they're getting some plays, they're moving the football, but he's gonna have to play better in the second half. And then he comes out in the second half, and he's throwing the football down the field. Tyreek Hill's running past people. He made some big plays in that offense. And that's what people have wanted really since they lost in the playoffs. They've been looking for that from him. And so if he can continue to do that, push the football down the field, not be hesitant, I mean, they can be a really good football team. So, from Alex's standpoint, I played with him in San Francisco a year. I know he's mentally tough. I know he's going to be able to kind of hold Patrick Mahomes off and go out there and do his thing. But, it's one thing to be mentally tough. It's another thing to have the ability to go out there and actually execute the plays that you have to execute. And man, he did that last night, and I was super happy for him. I think that was what he needed to do, and if he can continue to do that, the Chiefs are going to be something scary.
But I also look at this, and I don't overreact to what I saw last night. I want to know what are we going to continue to see from both of these teams, and that's where I look at New England and I say they have new weapons there on offense and defense, and it'll take time for them to get acclimated to the Patriot way. But the defense looked like it could be a concern only because they didn't put any pressure on the quarterback. They didn't put pressure on Alex Smith as much as they should. And I don't care who you have in the secondary. If you're not going to put pressure on a quarterback and he's got weapons like that, then you're going to get burned. And they got burned last night. Explain what you saw with the Patriots defense. And is it just last night, or is it something to keep an eye on the rest of the year?
Well, Kansas City does just like what we talked about earlier. They do some interesting things on the offensive side of the ball that can put you in position on the defensive side to where you're not as aggressive and you can't really pin your ears back and go get the quarterback. We saw last year with Kansas City, on third downs, they got pressured the least out of any team in the entire league, and that's what you kind of saw with New England. And Hightower went out, and you talk about all those young guys, or not young guys, but the new guys they have on that field. I mean, you got some guys in the secondary, yes, that have been there before, but Gilmore hasn't. He made a play last night where Tyreek Hill just runs right past him. That's a simple coverage error. I mean, he wasn't expecting he was expecting help back there. So he's either got to get his tail out of there and get deeper than the deepest, or he got to play better defense. And then so Hightower leaves, and then you see Hunt take advantage of some coverage errors in the middle of the field, a big pass play down the middle. There's just some things that Kansas City does unique unto themselves that makes it very difficult to line up. And then you kind of couple that with the fact that they don't have a lot of continuity on the defensive side of the ball yet, and you can see some big plays. You saw some in the run game. You saw some edges not set. I'm sitting up there with DeMarcus Ware, and he's saying, they're not setting the edge. They're not setting, and continuously guys are getting to the perimeter. So Belichick he's going to be livid in the defensive meeting. That just doesn't happen. I mean, Willie McGinnis is not walking through the door, so they're going to have to figure something out. They have to get these guys to start playing better. But you don't want to overreact, and that's usually what we do in these situations. But it's going to take some time for those guys to gel. They're definitely going to be there at the end of this thing. I mean, they're a good football team. On the offensive side of the ball, they have talent, obviously, maybe as much as they've had in a long time. But they're going to have to work through some things. You heard Tom Brady talk about we need competitive guys. They got to be, their attitude has to be correct. it's all a learning process for these guys, because there's a lot of good football players that are trying to gel, and it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's going to take time, and that's why I tell people, I caution that you can look at them and say they're going to be great, but they're going to have hiccups. They can have those bad nights, but then you're going to have to say, with that talent, they're going to somehow regroup. But it's week to week in the NFL, as you know better than anybody. I do want to ask you this before I let you go, and that is, DeShone Kizer gets the start in Cleveland. Can you give us a sense of what that feel? Can you take us back, when you were starting and a rookie, and what you think DeShone Kizer is going to be facing when he faces the Steelers?
Well, I mean, first of all, someone told me the other night that it was 15 years ago to the day that I played against the Cowboys in my open. I said 15 years.
Wow.
So you guys are making me feel really old. But that was my first start, was against the Dallas Cowboys. We look at all these young guys that have come out this year, a lot of hype around a lot of these guys, but DeShone's the only one that's starting. So he's going out there, and I know, obviously, like you said firsthand, the kind of pressure that he's going to be under. He doesn't know that he doesn't know at this point. He really doesn't. And there's a lot of things that you're going to have to just work through. He's a talented guy. He's the most talented guy, in their training camp, and that's honestly, that's kind of what happened to me. We had Kent Graham was there, but he was struggling through some back issues. He was at the end of his career. We had a couple other young guys, and it worked out that I just made more plays in training camp, and it was kind of hard for them to keep me off the field. And I think the same thing's happening with DeShone in Cleveland. Is he just looks better than everybody else. I mean, he physically has it, but the only thing that he doesn't have any experience. And so I'm a little hesitant about putting him out there until you look at who the head coach is. And I know we talk about Hugh Jackson a lot, but really there's probably only 3 or 4 other guys that I would take as a play caller over him. I mean, you look at what has happened in Cincinnati since he left, and it hasn't been good. And they still have the same talent.
Yeah.
They're still the same guys running around there. And Andy Dalton's still there playing quarterback, but the record has not been the same, and the efficiency hasn't been the same. So I think that if I'm going to put DeShone out in that situation where he doesn't really understand what's happening, he's got a lot of physical tools, he's going to have to work through some stuff. Hugh Jackson's the guy that I would want calling the plays for me, and he can do some things to protect the quarterback. He's going to do a lot of shifts and motions, and kind of what we saw Kansas City do to New England is you put them in positions where they're a little bit on their heels on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what Hugh can do for a quarterback. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. I think DeShone's going to be a good quarterback. I think they have some pieces there in Cleveland. They're starting to build something, but he's in good hands. I'll definitely say that. I think DeShone just go out there, continue to grow, and at some point your team's going to be ready to play. And maybe that's crazy to say. Maybe Cleveland will never be ready, but I like to think that with Hugh there, they'll be ready to go and do something productive, and he just has to be ready. And that's what I told Derek when he came out. They weren't very good their first year, but at some point your team is going to be ready, and they are now in Oakland, and you got to be ready to go out there and lead them. And that's what DeShone has to do. He's
David Carr, the NFL Network analyst. If we had a fantasy draft and you had to take a quarterback, all quarterbacks are available, who are you taking?
Okay. Let me just tell you what happened. Okay, so we have a a little fantasy league amongst our family and friends. So it's I got father-in-law, we got everybody in there, right? My other brother up there, and the first pick in our league was my brother Derek, which I thought, I raised some eyebrows. I didn't pick him. Now I won't say who did, but I thought that was a little high for Derek. But they didn't, and they went out and grabbed him. So in our league, he went first, which I was totally fine with because I got David Johnson, the third pick. But if I had to pick one guy, I mean, it's hard to really pick against Aaron Rodgers. And when I look at their team this year, just quickly, Martellus Bennett coming in there and helping them is going to do so much for their run game that it's going to make it a little bit easier for Aaron to throw the football, and that's the one thing you don't want to see.
So what you're saying is your brother is overrated. This just in. David Carr says Derek Carr.
That's accurate.
Is that accurate?
I think in our league, I think it was a little high. I mean, because he got a good running game.
Well, he can't be first overall, David.
That's what I said.
Yeah, he shouldn't be the first quarterback taken.
Well, there's only one of those in our family, and that's what I've kind of made clear to Derek, is that there's only one overall pick.
Of course, number one overall pick.
Right?
Yes. Hey, great to talk to you. Good luck this season, and we'll hopefully touch base again.
For sure. Thanks, dude.
That's David Carr, NFL Network analyst.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.